They're brainy and they're brawny, but alas, oh me, oh my, when it comes to marrying, an Irishman is shy. Would somebody put a penny in the gas meter? That's the way it was in our house. You'd be singing, you'd be reading, you'd be chatting, and suddenly plunged into darkness. And someone put a penny in the gas. You got a penny's worth each time. I lived in Auburn Street in Dublin, number 26, Auburn Street. Just a little terrace house, nice little house. There was 5 of us. My father, we called him the Daisy, my brothers Kevin and Nash, and my sister Bets, and myself. My mother had died when we were very young. I was 7, Lord rest her. So it was just the 5 of us. And it was a lovely, nice little house, like the room we'd sit in at night, the parlour. Lovely, nice fire, people chatting, someone singing, my father playing the fiddle, whatever. But the rest of the house was freezing. I mean, the bedrooms. You could make jello in any room and have instant dessert. And we used to dread going to bed. You know, you put it off for ages. And then when you'd be going to bed, you dress. You put on an extra sweater, an extra scarf, and I had a reading glove. And we got dressed. A visitor would say, "Are you going out, love?" I'd say, "No, I'm going to bed." And you know, then I found there's only one way to get into a freezing bed. You must jump in. You can't go slow, you've got to jump in. And when you jump in, you scream. Ah! Oh! Ah! Oh! Oh! You know, people having a nightly stroll down Auburn Street would hear these screams from the bedroom, could so easily be misinterpreted. And then back at the house, my father, he was a violinist, a wonderful violinist, but mostly classics. He loved the opera. And he'd tell us all about the opera. He'd tell us the stories. Now, your man was in love with this one, and her mother couldn't stand him. So the mother would plan to get, and he'd tell us the stories of the operas and play them. But he couldn't make a living at this. So my father had another career. My father was a bookmaker. No, he didn't make books. He was at the track with his board up. And I used to help him write the runners. M.F. Quinn, Michael Francis Quinn, turf accountant. That's what they called them. They're highly respected, you know, turf accountants. They're on a par with doctors and lawyers. Well, lawyers. And so, you know, my father would be at the races, and then he'd come home, and he had all his racing crowd. They'd come to our house. The men liked to come to our house because there was no woman in it. Aha, freedom. And they'd come to our house, and our house was like a halfway house. It was like halfway between their house and the pub. Into Quinn's, and they all had this racing slang. You know, if they even had a slang word for slang. They called it the Ben Lang. It was a rhyming thing, and everything rhymed. And they thought we didn't know. My sister and I, we knew it all. We knew everything they were saying. They'd be talking about the wife, a man telling about his wife. The wife was the trouble and strife. There's a thing for you. And tea was a cup of rosy lee with a little drop of satin and silk. Everything rhymed, and they talk in this slang. So between slang and Gaelic and English, we had a fine education. And some of the men were odd. Like one man, a pal of my father's, used to sit by our fire at night making rosary beads. And we thought he was very holy, so we avoided him. And here he's making, he wasn't a bit holy. Know what he'd do? He'd go down to the chapel after there'd be a retreat. You know, a retreat or a mission, and when all the ladies would come out, it was always women. The men didn't need it. And they'd come out after renouncing the devil and all his works and pomps, and they'd come out feeling very pious, and this man John would have his rosary beads. And they'd say, how much are the rosary beads? And he'd say, well, like, there's 2 prices, 2 shillings and 2 and 6pence. And the woman would say, I'll have the 2 shillings. And he'd say, well, ma'am, I feel I should tell you this. There's a happy death with the 2 and 6p. She'd say, well, the 2 shillings will do. He'd say, I can't believe you're turning down a happy death or 6pence. And he'd shame them into it. These were the kind of people. And then when my father would be away a lot, my Aunt Julia would take over. The neighbours looked after us. We could have been called latchkey children, except we'd no lock on the door and we'd no key. You just pushed in the door. And the neighbours, everyone looked after us. But my Aunt Julia came, and we loved her so much. She's a little stout lady, little brown woman, and she was very funny, only she didn't know it. She always wore her hat in the house. This was in case someone came to the door she didn't want to bring in. She'd say, I was just on my way out. And she hated bachelors. She wanted all men married. Let them suffer, she'd say. One fella down the road, a bachelor, really got on her nerves. She'd say, will you look at that fella? Make you sick. He's out there sowing his wild oats and praying for a crop failure. She said these things. She said these things, and she could put you in your place. If you got above yourself, she knew how to reduce you. One lady down the street came in for a lot of money, and she got very uppity and didn't talk to anyone. Walked with her nose in the air. Aunt Julia waited, met her in the street, and said, hello, Mrs. Riley. How are you? God, it's great to see you. Terrible sorry to hear about the fire in your bathroom. Thank God it didn't reach the house. This was her. And she was dear, though. She was very sweet to us. She was very particular about my sister and I. She made us wear a lot of medals. We had medals pinned in all strategic points. And I often used to think after, maybe she was right. Because when my sister and I would be going out on a date, like, if a fella got a little too amorous, you were always dead safe, because no matter where he put his hand, it landed on a medal. And she'd always tell us, now you're going to the dance, whatever you do, don't dance too close. Always leave room for the Holy Ghost. We never knew what size he was. But she had all these things, and I used to love. She would get things mixed up, the way she'd tell you something. She'd tell you, I was very sick there about a month ago. Oh God, I was terrible. Was I sick? I was desperate sick. They sent for the priest. I didn't know. Oh, I was in bed for 3 days with the doctor. She said everything this way. And then she always wore, for occasions, she would wear this kind of girdle. You know, it was like whalebone, and also it was like, she called it a stays. You know, her stays was, she thought changed her. I mean, she was a little plump lady, and they pulled her in like a sack of spuds with a piece of rope. And I'd say to Aunt Julia, you shouldn't wear that thing, because you can't bend. She couldn't bend in it. Once she put it on, she was very erect. And when we'd take her out in the car somewhere, we'd have to put her in sideways and lever her in. And then you'd meet her at a party standing erect saying, God, if I could only loosen me stays. It became a saying in our house. When things got tough, we'd say, if I could only loosen me stays. But one night I said to Aunt Julie, you really shouldn't wear that thing. It's not good for you either. And you don't need it. And though one night she stayed with me and I unlaced her. And when I did, she went all over the place. She loved music. She loved wakes, weddings. I think she preferred a wake to anything. She said there was more life at an Irish wake. And of course, in those days, they were in the house, and the soul was gone to heaven, so there was singing and rejoicing. But she'd have her own little parties in our house. It wasn't really a party. You know, it'd be just us, my father and the brothers and my sister and Aunt Julie and a few of the neighbours, and we always had a visitor from America. A returned Yank, they were called. And we'd have, you know, nothing. The men would all have a few Guinness, the women would have a cup of tea with a little something in it for me chest. They all had weak chests. And so, you know, the party would start just with that. And Aunt Julie got me to sing, and I'd have to sing a song she loved. It was about a little ring. Came from a district in County Galway called the Claddagh. And it was a lovely little ring that was used for a wedding ring. It had two hands clasped and a heart and a crown. I'm looking back across the years, what memories they bring of all the hopes and all the fears, like swallows on the wing. If I were but a poet, what stories I could sing of all the things encircled in a little Claddagh ring. The hands are there for friendship, and the heart is there for love, for loyalty through all the years. The crown is raised above, and they're gathered all together in that very special thing, my tiny bit of Ireland, my little Claddagh ring. It's getting old and shiny now, along of all the years. It shared with me the sunshine it's oft times felt my tears. But when for me the hour has come to meet my Lord the King, I hope he'll give me welcome with my little Claddagh ring. Song, and then I'd sit by the fire with my dog, and the rest would go. You had to call on someone. Julia called on her favourite, this lady who sang in a very high voice. She sang with the Gilbert and Sullivan Society, and she was very grand. She talked very grand like that, and Julia thought she was very special. She was really very lace curtain Irish. You know, fruit in the house and no one sick. And she'd, you know, she'd get up there and she'd sing, "'Tis the last rose of summer." And like, wouldn't your sinus open? And wouldn't the hair like stand up on your head. 'Tis the last rain. And my dog would go out. And out the door, tail between his legs. The dog was never right. And she'd scream on. And we knew she'd close her eyes with emotion. And we knew that, and we'd leave. And we just had everything timed. We knew she sang the lot. And just on her last shriek, we'd come back in. And Aunt Julie would say, oh God, she's marvellous. She should go far. And my father would say, I hope to God she does. And Julie would say, she has a very big repertoire. And my father would say, but that dress hides it. And back and forth they'd go, 1 and 2. And then it would be my cousin Kathleen's turn. Kathleen. My cousin Kathleen's very deep voice. We all sang low because we all got too much of those high singers. And Kathleen used to sing songs that a lady in America sang, Sophie Tucker. And we knew all about Sophie Tucker. And we would know all her songs, and Kathleen would sing, can't go on, everything I have is gone, stormy weather. And she'd sing this, and we loved it. And then as the years went by, Kathleen began to forget the words. And she was married to a wonderful man called Mick McGillan. And Mick was from the north. He had a lovely North of Ireland accent. Mick was a detective. And you'd know he was a detective, because he was always questioning you. You'd meet him in the street. Hello, Carmel. Where have you been? I was out to get a drop of milk. Aye. And who did you meet? I met Mrs. O'Brien. What time was that now? And so Mick loved Kathleen. And he'd be so, so concerned over her forgetting the words. He would get behind her chair like this. And Kathleen would say, can't go on, everything I have is gone, stormy weather. Since my man and I ain't together, since my man and I ain't together, keeps raining all the time, keeps raining all, and this is how I learned this song with 2 accents. Only way I could sing it. And then my sister Bets would either sing or she'd do a poem. You danced or you had to do something. And she loved the poet Percy French. And she would always sing, just do one of Percy French's. And she would do one called, I don't know. I'm simply surrounded by lovers since Dar made his fortune in land. They're coming in droves like the plovers ask for me hand. There's clerks and policemen and teachers, some sandy, some dark as a crow. Me ma says, you get used to the creatures, but I don't know. Now the convent is in a commotion to think of me taking a spouse. You see, they thought I had the notion of taking the vows. Oh, it's a beautiful life, and it's quiet. And it keeps you from going below. As a girl, I thought I might try it, but I don't know. I've none but myself to look after, and marriage, it fills me with fears. I know I'd get less of the laughter, and more of the tears. I'll not be a slave like my mother, with 6 of us all in a row. Even one little baby's a bother. But I don't know. There's a lad that has taken me fancy. I know he's a bit of a limb, and I know marriage is terrible chancy, but I might chance it with him. He's coming tonight, who I tingle from the top of my head to my toe. I'll tell him I'd rather live single, but I don't know. And then we'd have the visitor. The visitor, I always loved one lady in particular. She lived in San Francisco. She was from Ireland, but she lived in San Francisco, and she'd come home every night, every year. And she was a bit odd. A lot of our relatives were a bit odd. A lot of everyone's relatives are a bit odd. And of course, the odder they were, we said they were very distant. Oh, very distant. Oh God, I couldn't go far back. And Jenny was her name, and she lived in San Francisco. And they said she was odd because she'd been in an earthquake. And they said, you know them earthquakes in America, they like rattle your brains. And Jenny would always sing this song. Cocaine Bill and Morphine Sue were strolling down Park Avenue. So Cocaine Bill to his gal Sue, honey, have a on me. Oh, honey, have a on me. Honey, have a on me. Well, we never looked into the words. We never gave it a thought. We liked the swing of it. You know, we just liked the sound. We never thought of the words. And you know, there might be a couple of nuns there at the party, and Julia always liked a couple of nuns. She said nuns gave the party tone. And the nuns would be, honey, have a on me. Honey, have a on me. And Julia herself would sing. We'd all make her sing her song. She loved that. She'd get up and she would sing her little song. She always sang a lot of Gaelic songs. Tá an mór arige garamar manir smeg imach rom me mani trid an shif is garabun na warig me go fekit me ma vin until an or ha allin in a shir tre atten is tre ratnik is tre freket hon ma fril as har farthak is har fris is my up and duger amid me no strer bak on keel until an or ha allin in a shir be mcshir a hash the lumgan shaluskin asas tre duigle on tios megemat shir tre kriak lacherty and harig there on where until an or ha allin in a shir tre atten is tre ratnik is tre fek a tom of here har karig is har farthak is har fierce is my up Sugar amid me no strer above gone kill until on or ha on in a she. Hey! Wouldn't be always singing in parties. Oh no, there was the sad times. I mean, there was the serious times. There was that time called Lent. Do you remember anybody the old days of Lent? Oh Lord, it was hard. We had to give up everything. And everything was a sin, especially if you enjoyed it. And in our house, the rule was you had to go to confession every Saturday, and then you came home, and you went home and you washed your hair, and you stayed in, and you fasted. And you know, it could happen that once in a while, if you go to confession every Saturday, once in a while, I would have no sins. Just once in a while. Once in a while I'd have no time to sin. And you still had to go. And if you went in and told the priest you'd no sins, he'd eat you. So he'd say, what you mean coming here to me with no sins on your soul? Go out and sin and come back. And you know the worst thing we do? Worse. We would make up sins in confession. And that's a sin. I mean, now you're going from venial to mortal. You were killed with guilt. And then you went home and you washed your hair and you weren't let out. Why? My father would say, because your pores are open. He'd say, Carmel can't come out tonight, her pores are open. So different today. My daughter in Los Angeles says, Mom, you should see it here in Los Angeles. They have a drive-in confessional. Toot and tell. And an express lane for 7 sins and under. And then, of course, came St. Patrick's Day. No wonder we loved it. We could do everything. For that one day, everything you gave up, you did. And that was why St. Patrick's was so great. And all this time, my father was very anxious that I become a school teacher. And I now was in a teacher's college outside Dublin in Kerrisford in Blackrock. And I didn't want to be a teacher, but I had a scholarship and everyone was proud of me and I was miserable. And I said to my father, why do you want me to be a school teacher? And he said, Carmel, because at 65 there's a pension. I was 17. I said to him, nobody lives to 65. I still say that. It's called denial. So I said to him, don't you think I might do something with my life, you know? He said, like what? Well, I said, I'd love to sing or act or do something in the theatre. And he said, don't be ridiculous. That's all you ever got. Don't be ridiculous. You're losing the bit you had. So I said, well, you never know. He said, no, Carmel, you haven't a chance. Because you have no money, you have no training, you don't know anybody, you haven't a hope. And I said, well, you never know. I'd like to really give it a try. And he said, don't be ridiculous. So I took a job. Because in our house, if you didn't stay in school, you had to earn your keep. So I took a job for peace sake. My first job was selling shoes. And look, you had to apprentice to sell shoes. You had to apprentice for a full year. And you had to pay a fee. And they paid you back the fee in dribs and drabs, your bus fare. And the shoe shop was owned by a man called Morris Cohen. And the Cohens lived next to us. There was the Cohens in 27, and we were in 26, and the Kellys were in 25. So Morris Cohen owned this shoe shop, and he gave me the job. And you mightn't think it, but this kind of a job prepared me for life. It did, a shoe shop. Because you had to greet the people and talk to the people, and you had to convince them and make the sale, and you didn't exactly lie, but you varnished. Oh, but you varnished. I could have been a politician by the time I came out of the shoe shop. But my first day there, Morris Cohen said to me, Miss Quinn, I just must tell you the rules. Now, you are allowed in the course of the year to let 2 customers out with no sale. And with the 3rd no sale, you go with them. I said, okay, do my best. So in comes a woman, you know, and I say, how are you, grand? Isn't it lovely? I had the drop of rain we needed. We done, and we talk away for, and then she'd say to me, I want a little pair of shoes. No woman ever asked for a big pair of shoes. I want a little pair of shoes like something that'd take me from the kitchen to Mass to the dance. Right. Right. So, let me measure your foot. Ah, sir, sweetheart, you don't have to measure this foot. I have a lovely small foot. Barely take a 5. I would look at this huge foot and know this was an 8. But I'd say, right, off I go up the ladder, get the boxes, come down, try them on. I know. Try this one. Oh God, this is gorgeous. Try this one. No, my husband wouldn't like them. Look at that, gorgeous. And then Mr. Cohen is over in the corner watching me. And then we knew when they were tiring. You knew when the customer was tiring. And you'd say, wait till I tell you. Would you like a nice cup of tea? Oh God, I'd give anything for a nice... If I had a cup of tea, I wouldn't call the Queen me aunt. Go over here where they make, and we'd a little kettle, with hot water, with cups, just a cup of tea, a couple of biscuits, you're back, there you are. Oh, God love you. Leave her alone, let her have the tea and the bickies, and then you came back, and here's a changed woman. And she said, I'm going to take these, Pet. Oh, I said, you made a great choice, you did. And I'm taking the shoe from her, and she says, oh, wait. And she sees 8. She says, oh, there's a mistake here, Pet. Sure, I'm not an 8, I'm a 5. Ah, but I said, wait till I tell you. These shoes are from Italy. And see, in Italy, our 5 is an 8. Oh, I see, Pet. Oh, that's grand. So, grand. So I take them, and I put them in the box, and then you brown papered them, and then twine from a canister. And down, and you did the whole twine. And all the time talking, and hope your husband likes them now, and I hope you'll enjoy the dance. And see, what we were to do was wrap it like that, and then break the twine, smartly. And I couldn't never break the twine. I couldn't break the twine. I'd say, so I hope you enjoyed these and that your husband loves them too. And then I'd say, and come back again, won't you? That was the only way I could do it. And Mr. Cohen would say after, that was nice, Miss Quinn, but it's a terrible pity you can't master the twine. While I was there in Cohen's shoe shop, I heard there was going to be an audition at the Theatre Royal Dublin for a singer. Now, Theatre Royal is a gorgeous big theatre, 1,000-seater, 3 shows a day they had and 3 movies every day. And they'd a line of girls, the Royalettes, and they'd have a big American star or a London comic or whatever, and a singer with the band. And I thought, I'll go down and I'll just see, you know, I'll just see how you audition. I didn't know how. And I go down and I sit in the back of the Royal, big theatre, so I sat way back. And the band leader's up there auditioning these girls, and there they are, and I see them, and they have, like, the first thing I see is they have a briefcase. Oh, everyone had a briefcase with music. I thought, God, if I only had a briefcase with music. And they had their voice teacher, and they had their mother. And I looked, and I sat well back. And the girls got up, and they were all sopranos. There's one fine day when love, and they were screaming away. And he was saying, thank you, that's very nice, thank you, next. And it was, tell me, pretty maiden, are there any more at home like you? There are a few. What? And they go off singing like this. And he'd say, thank you very much. And he was getting crankier and crankier. And finally it was all over, and everyone went. And he looks around, he looks to the pianist and says, and then he sees me, and he says, hello, can I help you? And I said, no, it's all right. And he said, well, did you come to sing? I said, well, I thought I'd come like and ask about it, you know, and we could chat. And he said, well, do you sing? I said, I do. He said, well, what do you sing? I said, oh, anything. Oh, he said, that's wonderful. He was sarcastic and cross. He said, that's wonderful. He said, do you know Brahms' Lullaby? I said, I do, because my father always played these things. And he said, what key? I said, oh, any key. So we turned to the pianist, and the pianist gave the big soprano note to sing it. La, 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 up here. And I just sang lullaby and good night. Mid roses so white were lilies so fair, lay set on the air. And when daylight is born, may you wake to the morn. And when daylight is born, may you wake to the morn. Iha Q, Iha Ma, Eran Lena Vina Kalla. Iha Q, Iha Ma, Eran Kalin Gorjo, Shohin Show Lolo, Shohin Show is to Molana, Shohin Show Lolo, Shohin Show is to I like that, he said. You'll be the one we'll put on someday. Like that. No briefcase. But I think my mother was always there. And I said, oh, that's great. I couldn't believe it. So he said, you know, when I said Brahms' Lullaby and the pianist gave you the soprano key, and why did you take it down an octave? Well, I said, see, you're trying to put the child to sleep. In the other key, it had never closed an eye. So he said, you're right. And now he said, Sunday, do you have a gown? Gown? Gown, how are you? A nightgown? I had a flannel. I said, no, I don't have a gown. He said, well, I'll tell you what, our wardrobe lady will fix you up. You'll be grand. And he said, don't worry, and we'll pick a song and you'll be grand. So I went home and told the news, and everyone was excited, and oh God, well, my father never praised you. He'd say, I suppose it's all right. That's all. Him. And so I came down Sunday afternoon, and he said, the band leader said to me, what would you like to sing? He had asked previously. I said, I'll sing the Isle of Innisfree. Ah, but he said, nobody knows that. Don't sing that. No one ever heard of it. Ah, well, I said, like, how will anyone ever hear it if no one ever sings it? He said, well, you're right. And he said, this 3 o'clock Dublin audience, they're tough. They love it or they won't. Well, I said, sure, we'll give it a chance. So then I came down, and the wardrobe lady had a dress for me you wouldn't believe. It was worn by the chorus girls for like a Brazilian rumba. And it was royal blue with sequins, and it was the V down to here. And it had a slit up to here. And I didn't know what to do, and I told my sister, whatever you do, bring safety pins. So she arrived. She was coming down anyway to give me courage, bets, And she had come down with holy water, a bucket. And not just our everyday holy water, this was Lourdes. We had that for special occasions up on the mantelpiece. So she brought the Lourdes water and the safety pins. How can you miss? And so I'm inside with the girl, we pin me up and pin me down. I can hardly walk on the thing. I didn't care. And my sister is the quietest person on earth. And I don't know why, but in the dressing room, Bets whistled. And we never whistled. She never whistled. I never whistled. Because we were always told, a whistling woman and a crowing hen brings the devil out of his den. We'd never chanced that. But Bets whistled because she was nervous. And the chorus girls threw her out, outside the door, twirled her around and made her swear. And she had to really try to think of a swear. And then I said, what's wrong? They said she whistled. The girl nearest the door will be fired. Oh no, and the girl nearest the door was the oldest of the troop. Not kicking as high as the others. So I said, oh God, and I worried about her for months, nothing happened. Anyway, I come on to do my song, and the boil stage is like a block. You know, so I come on like this. Afterwards, my father said to me, in the name of God, you should learn how to make an entrance onto a stage, an entrance and an exit. You came on like a plough horse. That was the compliment. And I sang my little song. I've met some folk who say that I'm a dreamer, and I've no doubt there's truth in what they say. But sure, a body's bound to be a dreamer when all the things he loves are far away, and precious things are dreams unto an exile. They take him o'er the land across the sea, especially when it happens he's an exile from that dear lovely I love Innisfree. And when the moonlight peeps across the rooftops of this great city so wondrous though it be, I scarcely feel its wonder or its laughter. I'm once again back home in Innisfree. Ah, but dreams don't last, though dreams are not forgotten. And soon I'm back to stern reality. And though they pave the footways all with gold dust, I'll always love my isle of Innisfree. Took my bow, I went off, and the crowd applauded like anything, and I came back, plowing out again, and then I came back, and he said to me, I knew it. And I said, what? He said, I knew they'd like it. And there it was, and I'd no other song. So he said, sing it again, so I sang it again, and then I was on for the week. A full week. at the Theatre Royal. And the next day I got a little write-up, 2 lines, in the Irish Independent. It said, Carmel Quinn, young Dublin girl with an unusual voice, was a hit. I was thrilled. You have no idea. I'd say to Beth, read it to me over here. And then I'd say, now read it when I'm over here. And I kept hearing it, and read it in a high voice, read it slowly. Oh, and that decided me. That's what I want to do. I know that's what I want to do. I just was so happy. And then, the years I sang in Ireland and in England, Scotland, Wales, and the next thing I got married. And that's a whole other, wait till I tell you, for God's sake. So now we're going to America, and my husband Bill wants to go and open ballrooms. He did too, for all the immigrants in the 50s. And the thing was, I didn't mind. I was happy to go to America. And I didn't mind if I didn't sing in America. I wasn't one for fame or glory. I enjoyed life. And I liked to sing. I was happy singing in the kitchen. But it happened that I had to go on first because of passports or papers. I had to go by myself to America. And I was to stay with people, friends of my husband, Bill, friends of his. And they were called Gormans. Bill Gorman and Joan Gorman, and they lived in New York, but they had come from Dublin. So I felt, oh, that'll be all right. And so my sister, I said to Beth, what should I bring them? Let's see. Now there's the lovely Waterford glass, there's the gorgeous Carrickmacross lace, there's all the lovely things we have in Ireland. And Beth said, you know what? They're from Dublin, right? Right. Bet you they'd give anything for a nice bit of pig's cheek and cabbage. And I said, you know, you're right. Yes. Yes, I did this. I did it. And we went down to Henry Street, Hafner's, and we bought, to get the pig's cheek. Stay with me. To get the pig's cheek, you had to buy a pig's head. I did this. I did other things you wouldn't believe either. So, he wrapped it in brown, loads of brown paper, so there it was in the middle of my case with 3 bottles of Irish whiskey around it. And I was set for America. And we arrived at the airport. It was Idlewild. And the customs man said, anything to declare? And I said, no. And he said, open the case. I opened the case. He saw the big brown, he said, what's that? Oh, I said, that's just a pig's head. And he said, a what? I said, a pig's head. He said, what? Open it. So I opened up the paper, and there the pig's head looks up at him. One blue eye. And he said, you can't bring that in here. I said, I'm after bringing it 3,000 miles. He said, what are you going to do with it? I think he had some weird thing. I said, you boil it. And you put in a head of cabbage. And you peel in a few spuds. It's heaven. He said, oh my God. Hey, Joe! Hey, Ed! He called all the customs men, came over, everything stopped. And they said, get a load of them. Gee, great, Deborah, what? And they talked for a while. And then he said, go ahead, you can take it. He didn't want it under his counter. So then I meet the Gormans, and they're lovely people. And we go to their house, and I said to them, I have a present for you. And they said, oh, you shouldn't have. And they said it many times. You shouldn't have. Well, when they saw the pig's head, they were in America 40 years. They went into their bedroom and fell around the room laughing. And I never saw the pig's head after. And I never asked about it. I just said, let it be. And then I looked out the window from the room I was in, and the Gormans lived on Broadway. And I said, oh, Mr. Gorman, do you think we could go and see the theaters? We're on Broadway, this is great. He said, oh, honey, this is 145th Street. That's where we lived. He said, this is 145th Street. The theaters are way, way far. Oh, but I said, couldn't we go, just go tonight and see them? I've seen them in the movies, all those theaters, all those lights. Couldn't we go? And I begged him, and he said, okay. So off we went down to the theaters, and I saw the theaters, and they were gorgeous, and I was thrilled. I was thrilled. And then he took me, poor old Bill Gorman was fed up, he took me into a pub. There near Radio City is called Connie Hurley's. And he introduced me to Connie. He said, Connie, this is Carmel Quinn. She's just over from Ireland tonight. Ara Carmel, you're welcome. And he gave me a great welcome. And Bill Gorman says, Carmel does a bit of singing, you know, Connie. And Connie said, you do? Well, I'll tell you now, pet. You see up there, and up on his shelf, he had a television set. He said, well, up there, now see that show? That's the show for you. It's called the Arthur Godfrey Talent Scouts. Would you believe it? My first night in America. Now, isn't that strange? So it didn't mean a thing to me, you know. I had never heard of him. I never heard of the show. See, we'd no television when I left. So I knew movie star names, but wait. For an audition, 6 months. God, I said, 6 months? Sure, we might be all dead in 6 months. She said, I hope not. And we began to chat, and she was awfully nice, and she said, hold on for a second. She went in the back. She comes out in 5 minutes. She said, they'd like to hear you now. Same thing. Again, I often think, if I knew then, all those years, what I know now, I would never have ventured all the things I ventured. I'd have gone the right route and never done anything. But anyway, I goes into this room, and there's a pianist, and she said, your music, please. And well, I said, I don't have any music, but I thought we'd chat. Nobody was going to chat. So they just, a big panel, glass panel, and inside about 6 people. And they said, well, just sing something for us, dear. So I said, my feet are here on Broadway, this blessed harvest morn. And it's oh the longing in them for the spot where I was born. My weary hands are blistered from toil and cold and heat, and it's all to swing a scythe again through fields of Irish wheat. Had I my choice to journey back or own a king's abode, I'd rather seek the hawthorn hawthorn tree down the old bog road. And then I'd sing another one. And they'd say anything else, and I'd sing another one, and then I'd sing a Gaelic song. Shine high revo, huravo, hugavo he, shudagavo, nubberdock, myrick mempree, richolam machasson, ma highlock bilcree, creek new he, harma legum, shoot howler and osmar of Austin got cray, I'm a honin biog even the galulay, and I'd do all. Then I'd look in and they'd have their heads in their hands, as much as say, God, if she'd only go. And then I thought, I know, they want an American song. So I said, what is this thing called love? This funny thing. And they said, no, no, no. We hear that all day, dear, another Irish song and another Irish song. Then out comes a man and he says to me, we're going to put you on Monday. Believe it? I couldn't believe it. And this man was very sweet. His name was Jack Carney. Turned out to be Art Carney's brother. And he said to me, now when you come Monday, it's Monday night at 8 o'clock. And when you come, wear something just plain. And he said, eat very lightly. And I said, all right. I wore a plain shirt dress, but I didn't eat lightly. I had a huge dinner. We always believed, have a good dinner before you face anything. So I had a huge, and I came in, and there were 3 contestants. It was a rock and roll group who had had a big hit record, but their manager wanted them to have, you know, exposure. See, I didn't know it was such a big show. I had no idea. I thought it was a little local show that went as far as Newark. And I never heard of Arthur Godfrey in my life. And so I didn't, and then there was a lovely girl on playing piano, rock and roll group, pianist, and myself. And before we went on, the rock group said to me, pointing out to the stage, it's cold turkey out there. And I never heard that expression. And I thought, isn't that nice? They make sandwiches out there. So now the rock band go on and they're terrific. And then the girl goes on and she's terrific. And then I come on. I've still got my bad walk. And I come on and I just sing. The Garden of Eden has vanished, they say. But I know the lie of it still. Just turn to your left at the bridge of Finney and keep right on to Coot Hill. 'Tis there I will find it, I know sure enough, when fortune has come to my call. For the grass, it grows green around Ballyjamestown, and the blue sky is over it all. And tones that are tender and tones that are gruff come whispering over the sea. I come back, Paddy Riley, to Ballyjamestown. Come home, Paddy Riley, to me. My mother once told me that when I was born, the first day I ever saw the light, I looked down the street on that very first morn, and I gave a great crow of delight. Now most newborn babies appear in a huff and start with a terrible squawk. But I knew I was born in our Ballyjamestown. And sure, that's why I smiled at them all. Well, the baby's a man now, he's toil-worn and tough, what whispers come over the sea. Come back, Paddy Riley, to Ballyjamestown. Come home, Paddy Riley, to me. So I did my song, and off I came, and then the way the show was run, the group had gone first, and they do a little reprise, and there was a sort of a meter. There was a meter that went from like 10 to 100, and they came out and they were terrific, and like it went off over to about 80, and then the girl came on, the pianist, and she was wonderful. Went on over 80, and then he said, and now the girl from Dublin, Ireland, and I came out, and I couldn't hear the music. I couldn't hear my note. The applause was deafening. The whistling and cheering. And I was overwhelmed. I was so happy. But I couldn't believe, I didn't know anybody there. And all these people, all this love, I was so happy. But at the same time, I was so lonely. I was so lonely. Because, you know, no one I knew was there. And I was thinking of the Daisy, and Kevin and Nash and Bets and Aunt Julie and all the old crowd. I was thinking, God, if they were only there. And I just walked off. I was crying, and I walked off. And Arthur Godfrey was over at a desk, and he said, come on over here. And I couldn't. I was here crying. And Jack Carney said, you have to go out. And I said, I'm not going out. And I didn't. I didn't go out. And Arthur said, you'll see her tomorrow morning. And the next morning, I was on the panel. And then I realized this was a big show. My Lord, I was besieged with hairdressers and makeup people. And you know, they said, she's wonderful. I love how she looks. She's so sweet. Let's change her. And they were painting me and plucking me and taking my eyebrows and giving me question marks on it. And they were teasing my hair to here and cementing it. And I was saying, God, just to sing, come back, Paddy Riley, to Paddy, stop. It's a bit much. And I was worn out. And so, but we got on well, Arthur Godfrey and I. See, I never thought he was a big star. We didn't go in for people being a big star. People were all the same to me, to all of us. The elevator man and the doorman at CBS were my pals. They'd tell me what studio we were in, what's going on. But I didn't know anything about big stars. And you know, Arthur reminded me of my father, red hair, blue eyes. So, you know, we got on well in that he would tell a joke. And everyone would laugh. The cast would laugh, the band would laugh, the audience would laugh, and I'd be... And he'd say, Miss Quinn, you don't think that was funny? Well, to tell you the truth, I'd say I've heard better. And then he'd be going on about he met this lovely blonde. Oh God, I met this gorgeous blonde. You should see this blonde. Everyone is saying, and I'm looking at him. And he said, Miss Quinn, you don't approve. I said it's all the same to me, but I think at your age you should have your mind on your prayers. So we had it every day. We had something back and forth, and of course it was live and totally unrehearsed, and that was it. But he said to me on the third morning, you got 3 mornings on the show. That was the prize and a fee. So third morning he said, well, Carmel, would you like to stay with us? And really and truly, my answer, he often brought it up to me after, because I said, oh God, I'd have to think about it. Because I didn't know whether I wanted this constant, every day, in there, and makeup. And I enjoyed it, but I like to do other things. So he said to me, well, do it the way you want it. Well, I said, I hate coming in like at 7:30 in the morning for a 10 o'clock show to rehearse a song and singing since I was 7. He said, you're right. Come in at 9, and if you don't want makeup and hair, leave it. And we had a great time. But he said to me, he said, you know, I wish I could fly you back to Ireland after the show every day and pick you up the following morning. And I said, why? He said, because I hate to think you'll change. I said, I won't change. Not with my upbringing. He said, oh, Carmel, you don't know what a bit of fame and extra money and all that does to people. I've seen it, he said. Now, I said, you don't know our house. Nobody had a big head in our house. No one ever thought of it. You never got praise in our house, ever. And you didn't mind. You got used to never being praised. You weren't hurt by it. Bring home a great report card, my father would say, yeah, God, you could do better though. That was it. No one, and we couldn't take compliments. Very hard to take compliments. Even when people would praise a little baby, they'd say, it's a lovely child. Oh, God bless it. Immediately everyone would have to rush in with God bless it in case something happened. And, you know, a man saying to his young wife, oh, sweetheart, you look lovely tonight. She'd say, shut up. That's how we took compliments. Shut up. It meant I'm delighted, but I can't say it. And so, you know, that's the way we were. So I said to him, I'll never change. And I stayed on that show for 6 years and had a great time. And from that show came everything else, from that one night. Next thing, I'm in Carnegie Hall. Can you imagine? You can't imagine. I'm standing in Carnegie Hall. I'm looking out at a packed house and the boxes full, the whole place. And it's unbelievable. And it's beautiful. And I thank God. And then we brought over, for the first concert, you talk about getting a swelled head, it brought over a wonderful fiddle player from Kerry. Oh, a marvellous, a gifted man. And he did great in rehearsal. Super. But between rehearsal and the show, he went to Connie Hurley's. And I didn't know it, but there he was, standing by the curtain, like holding on to the curtain. While I was on, I didn't know, I'm singing, the Garden of Eden has vanished, they say, and I hear, good Gadel Carmel. And then, and I know the lie of it, still Christ, you're the best. All these remarks were coming out. We got him, he did all right in the end. But all those concerts were just wonderful. And then I get a call from Washington to sing for President Kennedy. Oh, I called my father. I said, hey, Dad, I'm going to sing for the president. He said, the president of what? I said, of America. He said, this is no time for joking. This call is costing a fortune. I said, honest to goodness. And then that day came, and my husband and I went to Washington, and I had a gorgeous, beautiful new dress. Oh, gorgeous. Only one of those, you remember those waists? Killing me. And you remember in the 50s, the high heel shoes with the pointy toes? made for people with one toe. I'm there in the shoes and the dress, and I know I'm terrific. And I'm nervous as can be. And they're waiting for the president to come in through a passageway, and I'm with the Secret Service men, and there's the big banquet out there, and it's all governors. It's a governor's dinner. No women, just the governors. So I'm here, and then President Kennedy comes, and I can't believe it. He's much taller than I thought. And I had tried to think of something wonderful to say to him, to say something that in years later he'd say, remember what Carmel said. Out of hope, I just, oh, hello, nothing. But he was charming. He talked to you as if you were the only person in the world. And he was dead late for this dinner, but he stood. And Carmel, what part of Dublin? Phibsborough, oh yeah. It's going up for the Phoenix Park, right. And who's in your house now? Your daddy? And all about my family. He put me at my ease to such an extent that I said to him, you know, you're dead late, you better go. So we went, and now I'm at, oh, and he'd asked me to sing Galway Bay. So now I'm at the side saying, now where's Galway Bay in the programme? Oh, it's not down, way down, I should, and I'm worried, oh please God, our Father who art in heaven, start my prayer. And you'd say this is like the show of a lifetime. And a governor comes and he's going out by there. He's going out to the phone or the gents. And he sees me all dolled up. And he says, hi Carmel. I said, oh hello. He said, darling, I just want to tell you, you were terrific. I hadn't been on. So on for that dinner. So now I just said, excuse me, I thought, sir, did you like the special request I sang for you? He said, darling, I loved it. I said, what? What am I worried about? It's a political thing. They don't care. It doesn't matter whether you're on or off. You're wheeling and dealing out there. Their own mother could get up and do a striptease. And they'd say, there's mother, so listen, Joe. I laughed, put me totally at my ease, made me realize, don't think you're that important. So it was a great evening for me. I think the best thing of my whole life, though, to date, is that I had 4 fine children. That was the best achievement of all. Then after all these things, I went into musical comedy. I love musical comedy, because musical comedy is silly. You know, nobody answers you. You ask a question in the script, what time is it? They'd say, the moon is in the sky and the stars are bright and I am so in, and they sing to you. So no one ever answered you. And I loved working with other people instead of always working alone. And the first show I did was Finian's Rainbow. How are things in Glockamara? Is that little brook still leaping there? Does it still run down through Donegal, through Killybates, Kilcarry and Kildare? Oh, I ask each weeping willow and each brook along the way, and each land who goes a-sighing to relay. How are things in Glockamara this fine day? That was my first show. And then my second show, I did The Boyfriend. I wanted to do something different, so I was French. I was a French governess. They kept putting me into Irish things. I don't know why. So, now I'm French. I say, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am so happy to be here this evening. You are also charming. And the audience hated it. And then I did The Sound of Music. I was Maria. Oh, it was years ago, right. So, I remember we did it in Canada. And we opened in a beautiful big park in Canada. And the nuns were all in among the trees with all the full regalia on them. The old-fashioned nun con. And the director would say, nuns, on stage! And the nuns would all go, what are we going to do about Maria? And then, again, nobody answers you. Do you remember the part in that where I wonder, should I stay in the convent or should I leave and marry? Remember I had a chance to marry? Well, I'm on my knees to the Reverend Mother. Oh, Reverend Mother, what should I do? Should I stay in the convent or should I leave and marry him? Remember him? Should I stay in the convent or very good looking? Should I stay in the convent and rich? Should I stay in the convent but 6 kids? Should I, Mother, tell me, should I stay in the convent or should I leave? Please, tell me what to do. She looks down at me and she says, climb every mountain. I asked her, should I stay in the convent or should I leave? Climb every mountain. And I thought after, she wanted to do that. She had that coming on for years. We all have that in us. And sooner or later, it has to come out. And it's good for you. It releases things inside you. You should try it, not now. And then I did a show. Oh, a show called Wildcat. It was written for Lucille Ball, God rest her. And you'll never guess who my leading man was. You'll never guess. You look at me, you'll know I've suffered. Ed McMahon. Big Ed. Real nice man, really. And so, but I was very shy at the time. And you know, the director said, Carmel, today we rehearse the big love scene. Here's where you kiss Ed. Oh God. I'm going to kiss him. I said, I will. He said, no, today. No, I will. Oh God, I will. Oh yeah. Can we do it on the opening night? No, this rehearsal. You kiss him now. And see, I didn't know, I wasn't used to it. Like Jack Parr, Johnny Carson, used to always say to me, you're the only one comes out here and never kisses me. And I said, but I don't know you. You know, I mean, everyone else on those panel shows come out and they kiss as if they're alive, and they only met that minute. And I wasn't used to that, you know. I mean, in Ireland, the height of passion was a handshake. Put it there. After one of them, you'd nearly have to get married. So I didn't know, and I didn't know whether to give Ed a little kiss, or would that look like I didn't like him, or a big kiss, or would that look forward? And I did, and thank God it was the 60s, not today. The way they kiss today would kill me. You know, munching each other. So I needn't have worried. I needn't have worried for 1 second. Because when Ed McMahon was kissing me, he was selling me insurance. Carmel, if you're over 40 and don't smoke or drink, I can get you a great deal. There was a great song in that show. Do you remember this song? Hey, look me over, lend me an ear, for a shout of clover, mortgage up to here. But don't pass the plate, folks, don't pass the cup. Figure whenever you're down and out, the only way is up, and I'll be up like a rosebud, high on the vine. Don't thumb your nose, bud, take a tip from mine. I'm a little bit short of the upper room, but don't be getting me some. And look outward, here I come. Come on, everybody. Hey, look me over, let me hear. Let's shout a clover and mortgage up to here. Don't pass the plate, don't pass the cup. Figure whenever you're down and out, the only way is up, and I'll be up like a rosebud, high on the vine. Don't thumb your nose, bud, take a tip from mine. I'm a little bit short of the upper room, but let me get me some. And look outward, here I come. Hey! We always finished our parties at home in 26 with everyone singing together. And I think you couldn't have it any other way. So I think we'll all sing. I'll give you 2 words to sing. And you've only to sing 2 little Gaelic words. Eileen Aroon. It means Eileen, my love. And you just sing Eileen Aroon. Eileen Aroon. Lovely. So I sing Cade Mila Falsha Road. Eileen Aroon. Cade Mila Falsha Road. That's gorgeous. Cade Mila Falsha Road. Falsha is Feha Road. Ne Cade Mila Falsha Road. Eileen Aroon. Oh, that's good. You should hear yourself. Beautiful. The Mormon Tabernacle. Shuling Dun Boharlat. Eileen Aroon. Shuling Dun Boharlat. Eileen Aroon. Shuling Dun Boharlat. Father Schroeder knew. Shuling Dun Boharlat. Eileen Aroon. Perfect. Now keep it going. Tour allura, allura. And Julia, you know, we never waited just for New Year's Eve to sing Auld Lang Syne. We sang Auld Lang Syne after every party, and so did everyone else, yes. And Aunt Julia would start it in Gaelic, and then we would all sing the chorus in English. She'd sing, La Jane German, a cordia cree, it's not late a galavi. Na Jane German, go Joe, it's not late a galavi. Then we'd all sing, for Auld Lang Syne, I live for Auld Lang Syne, where fair a cup of kindness for Auld
Thank you.